Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us. We're here today for a virtual event to talk about climate leadership under Governor Lamont's tenure here and everything that we're doing. We have a really robust agenda to not only tackle the climate crisis here in our state, but also do so in a way that puts equity at the forefront and ensures that we are addressing the needs of vulnerable and overburdened communities in our state who have suffered some of the impacts of air pollution and other environmental justice challenges over the years, and who are going to be uniquely vulnerable to the impacts of climate change as they accelerate, those impacts accelerate in our state. So I'm just really pleased to be joined here by Governor Lamont, by Representative Jerry Reyes, who has joined us here, as well as Tony Sheridan from the Eastern Connecticut Chamber, to speak with everyone today about the policies and programs that Governor Lamont is leading here in our state to address climate change, how critical it is for those to be inclusive of vulnerable communities or urban communities across the state, and what tackling the climate crisis means for improving the economic competitiveness of our state as we transition to cleaner, more convenient transportation systems and grow jobs through investment in clean energy and energy efficiency across our state as well. So I'll just say, just at the outset, I just want to give a highlight of some of the things that we are doing in our state, but really important for us to center this conversation in why we're taking action. The climate crisis is upon us, and we're already paying for global inaction in our state. And I apologize, one of my coworkers is just joined me for just a quick second. Sorry about that. An example, though, of this is the generation that we're working for. Our kids really need us to take urgent action to tackle this crisis so that they can have a livable future. We know that there's high confidence that we're already going to see some very significant impacts in our state. Mean sea level rise by 2050 is expected to be up to 20 inches. That is going to mean more frequency of flooding along the Connecticut coast, as well as nuisance flooding that will occur and more intense storm surge. We're going to see average temperatures in Connecticut increasing by 5 degrees by 2050 compared to the 1970 to 1999 baseline. We're going to see more intense rainstorms. If we think of climate change as something that's only affecting the coasts, it's not true. We're going to see rainstorms bringing more intensity of precipitation falling in a short period of time, which is going to stress our rivers, stress our flood control structures, our culverts, our roads, our infrastructure. At the same time, we're going to see drought risk expected to increase, and hot weather to become more frequent with higher temperature events. This all means that we're going to need investment. And by the way, these are all the changes that we expect just based on the amount of carbon emissions that we have put into the atmosphere today. So it's already a daunting challenge that we're facing in addressing these known and expected impacts that are going to occur. We have to take urgent action now to prevent things from getting even worse after 2050. Climate change is not one of those things where we can get to a point where we see these impacts, decide that they're bad enough, and then start to take action to reduce carbon emissions. The carbon that we're putting into the atmosphere today is going to be with us for a very long time. And it's really critical for us to be able to take action today to prevent things from getting worse into the future. And so I'm really excited to talk about what we're doing to take action. Our state has set really ambitious targets to reduce carbon emissions over the years, but under Governor Lamont's leadership, we're taking action now to implement the programs that we need to achieve those targets. That's the difference in climate leadership in our state. And by doing so, we're going to help to improve air quality. We have some of the worst asthma rates in the state that are burdening communities. That means families who have to stay home from work to take care of their kids, employers who don't have a reliable workforce because people are covering this burden of health impacts that is driven by air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. It also means improving affordability of energy in our state by investment in renewables and energy efficiency to help people lower their energy costs. I just want to say a few things of what we're doing in the near term to address some of these opportunities. First off, we have just yesterday, the governor announced that Connecticut is joining with Massachusetts, DC, and Rhode Island to join into the TCI program, which is a groundbreaking multi-jurisdictional program that pursues systematic and substantial reductions in motor vehicle pollution, which is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in our state. 38% of our emissions of greenhouse gases are coming from the transportation sector. And participation in the TCI program will guarantee Connecticut will achieve at least a 26% reduction in annual revenue by 2032. It's going to generate $1 billion of investment in clean transportation options right here in our state. And I'm really excited to underscore that our state, together with the other jurisdictions that are moving forward with this program, are committing to invest a minimum of 35% of those proceeds in for things that support underserved and overburdened communities in our state. It's really time for us to put those communities first in these clean transportation programs, again, because that will bring benefits in improving air quality. So we think about the things that this program will do for our state. It will bring us employment programs across transit, construction, and green energy. It'll be a catalyst for infrastructure development through the next decade and beyond. So I'm really excited to talk more about what we're doing with TCI, again, using a market-based program, leveraging competition to deliver these reductions at the least cost possible. One more quick pause. I'm very okay. So another exciting thing that we are doing outside of the transportation sector is focusing on the electric sector as well. This is a sector where we've already made some historic progress in reducing carbon emissions. Last week, Dept issued the state's draft of our integrated resources plan, which is a plan for the state's future electric supply needs and pathways to meet them. Governor Lamont last year in Executive Order 3 called on us to assess pathways to achieve a 100% zero carbon electric supply by 2040. This IRP draft that we issued shows modeling results that tell us that that 100% goal is feasible and affordable and achievable for our state. We have already made enormous progress in reducing the carbon content of our electric supply. With more than 50%, so nearly 65% of the electricity that's consumed by our electric distribution utility customers is already being supplied by zero emission renewables and nuclear resources. And by 2025, thanks in part to the governor's leadership in driving investment in things like offshore wind through historic procurements that occurred last year, that percentage is expected to increase to 91% as new offshore wind and grid scale solar projects are going to, that have been contracted but not yet constructed, are going to become online. One of the main focuses that we look at in this IRP and are going to be working on in the months to come, together with our sister New England states, is on ensuring energy affordability and equity for all ratepayers, in part by starting with reforming the markets of the ICE in New England so we can better achieve our long-term electric sector decarbonization at the lowest cost possible to our ratepayers. Of course, we all know that one of the first ways and the most cost-effective ways to reduce emissions and save ratepayers money is through investment in energy efficiency initiatives. Dept has continued to work with utilities and contractors to facilitate energy efficiency initiatives for residents and businesses. Even during this pandemic, we've worked hard to remove barriers to participation in efficiency programs for folks with lower incomes by expanding incentives and establishing safety protocols to allow for in-home energy assessments to work during the pandemic. We know that the average Connecticut household saves $200 per year from the initial visit, and we've avoided building 1,000 megawatts of power plants in this state because of our investment in energy efficiency over the last many years. This is a really powerful program. It's not new, but it is working every day to, again, employ hundreds of people and small businesses around the state that are delivering these energy efficiency services and helping families and businesses across Connecticut lower their energy bills and be part of our climate solutions. I'll finally want to say just a brief word about another, important connection between equity and climate change. And that relates to the waste crisis that we're working hard to solve in our state. Connecticut is facing a waste crisis. Many of the traditional infrastructure solutions that we've relied on for the last several decades to dispose of our municipal solid waste are becoming more costly to operate because they're aging and require more investment. Waste energy facilities like the Mira facility here in Hartford are aging, and they're likely to go offline, that one in coming years, perhaps as soon as 2022. And with the costs increasing for waste energy facilities and the possible loss of significant amount of waste energy capacity, many municipalities are starting to opt for a worse solution, which is exporting their waste out of state to landfills at a higher cost. This is not affordable. It's not sustainable from either an environmental or an economic standpoint, as we expect that 40% of the landfill capacity in the Northeast is going to close by 2026. So that's why Dept is co-chairing the Connecticut Coalition for Sustainable Materials Management in partnership with 74 Connecticut municipalities. We came together in August after the governor made the call that we need to really move and advance our sustainable materials management options. We have large cities, we have small towns led by Democrats, led by Republicans, who come together in this coalition to look at what we can do. And the good news is that there are, like many aspects of solving the climate crisis, the solutions are available, they're affordable, the technologies are here for us to advance sustainable materials management by increasing recycling, by building infrastructure that can help divert food scraps and organic material, pull it out of the waste stream and process it in the state, and by looking at things like extended producer responsibility programs and unit-based pricing that can help us keep up and match the successes of jurisdictions around the country that have advanced sustainable solutions. Our waste energy facilities are still a very important part of our disposal infrastructure. We need to have reliable and affordable places for disposal of our waste, but we also know that those waste facilities are contributing to very high amounts of air pollution that are impacting urban communities like here in Hartford. And so the leadership that the governor is providing here and working together with environmental justice communities and municipalities around the state, we have the opportunity to really move to diversify our waste infrastructure and move towards sustainable solutions. That's the kind of climate leadership and environmental justice leadership that Governor Lamont is providing. I'll speak a little bit later on some of the processes we have going on with the Governor's Council on Climate Change and so on, but let me take a pause here for a moment and would love to introduce Representative Reyes from Waterbury, who's joining us today to talk about these important issues. He's been a fabulous leader in supporting environmental justice and climate action in our state. And so pleased to have you with us today, Representative.
Thank you, Commissioner Dykes and Governor Lamont, for the opportunity. It's communities from the urban population that I represent that have been for decades marginalized and quite frankly ignored in some cases when it's come to the pollution, the asthma. And I'm really excited to hear of this initiative that the not only the state of Connecticut, but the regional, the TCI is doing, because as we all have stated over and over again, pollution has no borders and it has no hard stops. And the bad air quality from Springfield, Mass is coming right into our corridor from the north down to the south. So, the residuals of the industrial revolution and the brownfield remediation and everything that we're dealing with, um, communities that I represent are excited to hear that there are now programs to address not only the pollution aspect, but also to address the climate change and to actually talk about putting the climate change conversation on the table. And to that end, I would still want us to continue fighting. I know we started a couple years ago and we had a big discussion on it last year, is to get climate change education into the education system sooner rather than later, and to better informed students make better informed decisions as adults. And I think that this step right here is a great initiative for the region and for the state of Connecticut. And I want to applaud Governor Lamont for his leadership, as well as Commissioner Dykes and the associates that are on the call right now for having the vision and the planning to be able to carry this forth. So looking forward to partner with everybody who's involved. And again, on behalf of communities of color that have been disproportionately marginalized for years, we're excited.
Great. Thank you, Representative. And I know that one of the things that has proven again and again, as we look at the programs and solutions we've been putting in place to reduce emissions from the electric grid, is that delivering climate solutions also brings employment in our state and boosts our economic competitiveness. As we think about what we've done, we're a state that for decades always relied on importing our energy sources from elsewhere in the country. And now with the investment in renewable resources, with the build out of solar and really exciting offshore wind, we have the opportunity to capture a lot of economic activity here in our state, not just centered around our terrific port infrastructure, but also as we think about supply chain and leveraging our precision manufacturing in the state to help start to construct cables and turbines and other component parts that will be delivering on our clean energy future. We've also secured the continued operation in the Millstone facility, which provides 2,100 over 1,000 good, excellent paying jobs down in the southeast part of our state, a real anchor of a zero carbon energy solution that's boosting economic competitiveness in the state. I can go on, but I think what I'm really excited about is with the announcement around the Transportation Climate Initiative. I think we're going to see with $1 billion of investment over the next decade that we're going to get our transportation system moving in a direction that's cleaner by delivering better service, faster service, and investment in things like electric charging infrastructure, more transit projects, things that will build construction jobs, and also provide for the kind of connected, low emission energy infrastructure that businesses in our state are calling for. And so I'm really pleased to have Tony Sheridan joining us from the Eastern Chamber. Tony, it's always been a pleasure to speak to the Chamber and talk about what we're doing in the administration to prioritize climate leadership, and pleased to have you today on the press event today to share your views.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Governor. Hello to everyone. Look, this is a very powerful initiative on several fronts. First of all, representing this community as a regional chamber where we have 42 towns, to bring 42 different organizations together is an enormous task, and I can't imagine that bringing all of these states together wasn't an enormous task, and quite frankly, I think precedent setting. So what I like about this agreement, by the way, is we all know cap and trade has been around for some time, but I particularly like the fact that we're really entering into a whole new economy. This will lead the way. Not only will it lead the way, but it'll bring the many progressive companies who want to embrace the new economy, who recognize that we have serious pollution concerns and climate concerns. this will attract those kind of companies to the state of Connecticut. And believe me, it will, because most companies, as you, in terms of the list you have of people, companies signed up already, most companies will want a clean future. They want a healthy future. And quite frankly, this is a major step in that direction. So congratulations to everyone. I can only imagine this was an enormously difficult task to get everybody on the same sheet of music here. And you know, good luck with it. If we can help out in any way at our level, you know, I chair the Metro Chamber groups. I'd be happy to have you come on that, Katie, and address, and the governor, of course, and address the Metro Chamber groups to fill them in on the importance of this. And look, good luck with it, and we'll be in touch to help out, to help you go forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, and really appreciate your visionary support. And I agree with you that in talking with companies that are thinking about locating to our state. Just last week, had a conversation with a consortium of companies, eyeing Connecticut, and they're comparing us to, Texas, to Florida. The climate risks are really part of the conversation now for companies that are thinking about their future and their bottom line. And the investments that we're making in a clean transportation system, in improving our resilience of our infrastructure across the state, are really setting us apart for the future in our state from other states that have fallen victim to some of the climate politics that's prevented them from moving forward. I'm so proud of Governor Lamont's leadership on the Transportation Climate Initiative and so many other efforts. He's really built bridges and strong relationships with our regional partners. And we know that when we work together with other states in our region, we can advance solutions in a way that's equitable and where our investment and our policies here are even more impactful when we do them together with other states. And it just demonstrates that really practical leadership, that TCI is being implemented on a bipartisan basis. We've got both the 4 jurisdictions that have committed to implement the program, that announced that commitment yesterday, as well as 8 other jurisdictions that have also committed in a statement yesterday to continue to be part of these discussions to help us design the program and with an eye towards possibly joining into TCI in the years ahead. Those states include New York, which signed on to this statement yesterday, as well as Maryland, New Jersey, Virginia, and a new addition, North Carolina. They've asked to be at the table and be part of the design of this process. I love hearing more Southern accents on our planning calls as we see that successful models like a multi-state cap and invest program are really gaining ground and gaining support all across the country. And that's really a credit to the visionary leadership of Governor Lamont and the other governors that are working with us on TCI in moving this forward. And by the way, the TCI program, and part of why we're so excited about this is because we've already seen the successes of a cap and invest model in our electric sector. Connecticut will be a charter member of TCI, just as we were a charter member of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative over 15 years ago when we launched that program. At that time, people said, the program would be really costly. It would cause the lights to go out, and it's been exactly the opposite. We've gotten more emission reductions, even cheaper than we had imagined when the program started. We had to move quickly to strengthen the program even more because we were finding we were getting emission reductions faster than we could have, than our modeling dictated. I'm confident that that will be the same case with the Transportation Climate Initiative. But I'm just so proud to introduce Governor Lamont to speak a little bit about his leadership on climate, addressing our climate crisis in a way that is helping advance equity and support vulnerable communities across our state. Governor Lamont?
All right, thanks, Katie. First of all, for all your good work at as Commissioner Dept, the leadership you're taking. Obviously, our Council on Climate Change has not been sitting around for the last year, really getting amazing things done. give my best to your senior climate advisor I saw in the background there during your talk. Keep up the good work. It's about the next generation. Tony, I appreciate you being here. I got to tell you, I mean, Southeast Connecticut, Tony, is our leader when it comes to our zero carbon future. First of all, obviously our down payment at Millstone, what that means in terms of 50% of our power right now is carbon free because of Millstone. Now doubling down with wind power coming out of New London, what a difference you're making. We're putting not just words, but into action. And obviously my great friend, Jerry Reyes, appreciate your being here and impart our environmental conscience. You remind us every day how this is about growth. It's about equity. It's about how different communities get hit disproportionately. If we didn't learn that during COVID, how Black and brown communities are disproportionately hit by COVID and pre-existing conditions, we know it now, and we know that public health is related to the environment. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. Appreciate your efforts. Let me just pick up where you guys left off. I mean, we are so much more effective when it comes to dealing with the environment and when it comes to dealing with public health, when we work not just in a vacuum, but work on a regional basis. And the amazing work you've done in corralling all the different towns as we come up with solutions for MIRA and waste to energy. You all mentioned the work we've got to do with our regional governors as we deal with first the electric grid and now transportation. It was Reggie was a cap and trade for the electric grid, which is means that our electric grid is already about 2/3 carbon free. And I think it'll be over 90% carbon free within the next 4 or 5 years as the wind power comes on. And we're really on track to make it zero carbon by 2040. And we can't do that without our friends in the region. Reggie was a cap and trade system for power on the grid. It was in part created by Connecticut's very own Gina McCarthy. Gina is now going to be the senior advisor on climate to President-elect Joe Biden. So power to you and what this region has meant as a leader here. And I'd like to think our leadership is going to be picked up and now translated around the country with work down in Washington. And I think that's what TCI, the Transportation Climate Initiative, picks up on. Is Katie mentioned 38% of all of the pollutants, greenhouse-related particulates come out of the transportation sector, and we have to deal with that head on. And I want to deal with that in a way that's A, effective, and B, doesn't put Connecticut at a competitive disadvantage. So what we're able to do with TCI, first of all, with Rhode Island and Massachusetts, Washington, D.C., obviously we talk to New York all the time. What we're going to be working on together is going to make an enormous difference just in terms of at least that transportation corridor. And as Jerry pointed out, the heightened asthma, for example, that afflicts those kids that live in those urban environments next to a transportation corridor like that. It's really important also doing this on a regional basis because we maintain our competitive edge. So this cap and invest or cap and trade program won't affect our gas prices vis-a-vis, say, Rhode Island and Massachusetts, our two neighbors to the north and east. And we continue to be less expensive than New York. And yet we're all making continued progress in terms of our work in transportation. Look, Reggie helped create a funding stream that has provided, I think, close to $200 million since 2008. A lot of that money's gone to energy efficiency. A lot of that money means that we're able to save, working class families $200 a year in their electric bills. It's represented thousands of jobs for young contractors who are making homes and commercial more energy efficient. That's other things that Reggie's been able to accomplish. And I think you're going to find with TCI, the costs are capped, so you can ignore some of the rhetoric you hear out there. It's up to $89 million starting in a year or two. At least that's $89 million that's going to help sustain our transportation fund. That's $89 million going to help for clean bus and other public transportation things we're already doing. We'll be able to do better. So this is solving a number of issues for us, the environment front, on the economic front, and on the fiscal front. And for that, I'm really thankful. So now my job, working with each and every one of you, is to take this to the legislature. We've given, I think, a pretty credible solution with numbers that back it up, give you an idea of what it would mean for our economy, what it would mean for our environment, and what it means for environmental justice. Let's see if we can get this done. Back to you, Katie.
Thank you so much, Governor. I really appreciate your leadership on these issues. And by the way, you've been keeping us incredibly busy implementing your climate change agenda. The Governor's Council on Climate Change, which you convened for the first time last year, including business leaders, environmental stakeholders, many members of your cabinet, municipal leaders. We've been hard at work even throughout this pandemic on advancing common sense recommendations that we can take, urgent actions that we can take beginning in 2021. And throughout that process, we have put environmental justice and equity at the forefront. I'm very excited, Governor. We had a meeting of the Governor's Council last Friday to put some of the finishing touches on what is a list of 63 and counting recommendations for urgent action that we can move forward. And they'll be coming to you on January 15th. We're going to be getting some comment from the public on those as well between now and the 15th. But it just speaks to, what the kind of action that's needed, but also the incredible transformative value that these policies and recommendations can have. And hundreds of people have been involved in this process of developing these recommendations. I'm really excited about what this will mean for the state. I know that we have some members of the Governor's Council joining us today. I think Charles Rothenberger from Save the Sound. Save the Sound is a member of the GC3, is on with us as well. So he may have some comments or could respond to questions in the Q&A as well. But I know, I don't know if Charles, if you had something.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I just want to take this opportunity to say that I couldn't be more proud of Connecticut than I am today as we continue our tradition of leadership tackling climate change, which is really the greatest challenge of our generation, certainly. And while TCI is bold, I think everybody needs to understand, as both you and Governor Lamont have pointed out, it's not speculative. It's based on the proven success of RGGI, which is very similar and which has been very effective in reducing emissions from the electricity sector. We know this model works, and we're really excited that we can be applying it to the largest source of our climate emissions, the transportation sector. And while reducing those emissions, we're going to be driving innovation in our economy and addressing the health inequities of our most overburdened communities. There's been some misinformation, I think, and misstatements in the press about the program. I would encourage folks to visit the TCI website and look at the modeling and data that's presented there. And you'll see that cap and invest programs like TCI really present win-win-win solutions for the environment, the economy, and for public health. And we're proud to support it, and we're proud of your role in this, Governor Lamont.
Thank you, Charles. Well, that's terrific. And I think that's all the formal remarks we had today. So I think if everybody's ready, we can move to some Q&A.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Just a reminder for everyone to mute their phones or devices until called upon, and we'll start with WFSB.
Good morning, everyone. Governor, you look so festive in your tree, and Katie, you have a lot of patience. Your son seems to have left you alone for a few minutes, so that's good, right? My question kind of goes back to the Malloy administration, where there was a big push for CT fast track and getting a lot of transportation. And yet Connecticut continues to have these HOV lanes, right? And they're not really utilized. So what kind of push is being made to get, more people out of their cars and into public transportation? And is this part of this program to reduce carbon emissions?
Well, I can say that, through this pandemic, I think it has really highlighted how critical bus service is, especially in our state, and for serving essential workers. And we saw ridership, really staying fairly steady on those bus lines during this time. So at the same time, revenues have been challenged for transit programs all across the country. The TCI investments can help to stabilize and even expand transit ridership and service. Not just for urban communities, but also for rural communities that are, served by, critical bus lines that provide for easy commutes. And the DOT here in the state, along with many of the municipal transit districts, made commitments to switching their buses from diesel over to electric over the next decade. That's really a double benefit, not just in providing for more service, expanding service, but also ensuring that those buses that are rolling through communities are not putting out diesel exhaust, but providing, clean transportation options for communities. That's an example of the kind of solutions that the TCI program will bring to a reality here in Connecticut.
Thank you. So hopefully encouraging companies to offer rebates, or the state can give rebates to try to incentivize people to do their part.
You bet. And we also have a program, the Cheaper program here in our state, where we've been providing with a modest amount of dollars rebates for purchase of electric vehicles. That's been very popular, very well subscribed over the years. We just haven't had the funding source to be able to scale that to the anticipated need. And as we think about what we could do with a program like Cheaper over time, it's not just about passenger vehicles for residences, but also to Tony's point, many companies around the country are making sustainability a key corporate focus. And so expanding these programs can mean we can help the companies support shifting over to electric fleets for their vehicles and their needs, not just for passenger vehicles, but for medium and heavy duty vehicles. Look at UPS. They are at the forefront and looking at the places that they're expanding. They want to see that states and transit and DOTs are investing in the type of charging infrastructure that can accommodate, where they want to go, which is a clean transportation fleet. So these dollars are going to really make the difference for, Connecticut and our southern New England states with our shared transportation corridors to really be a very attractive place, be positioned well for the future that's coming, which is electric.
And not to get too sidetracked, Governor, would you like to comment on Commissioner Cardona and some of the news that we're hearing today that he may leave Connecticut and go to Washington?
Yeah, it's just another Connecticut superstar. We're losing. That's a loss for Connecticut, but it's a big win for kids and teachers and education around the country. We were fortunate that Miguel was able to take the lead here in the state for close to 2 years. Fortunate that he worked very closely with teachers, kept our schools open. I think these are all things that were very important to President-elect Biden. So I wish him all the best. He can be down there with Gina McCarthy and other Connecticut leaders who are making a difference in Washington.
Thank you, Governor.
All right, thank you, Sue. Moving on to the Hartford Current.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, good morning. I wanted to turn the attention a little bit to energy prices. It's been a real problem for a while, going back to deregulation in the early 2000s. Governor Malloy made a push for natural gas as a cheaper alternative to oil. And then in November, Pratt & Whitney announced it's building an advanced manufacturing plant in North Carolina, and it cited energy prices. Those are energy costs. Those are 850 jobs that are going to North Carolina rather than East Hartford or Middletown. Can you talk a little bit about what you see in the short term about bringing down energy prices in Connecticut? It's really been vexing several administrations now, and it's an economic development issue, obviously.
You bet. Happy to take that one. Our integrated resource plan draft that we put out last week highlights not only pathways and strategies to, continue our progress in reducing carbon emissions from our electric supply, but getting that energy in an affordable way and ensuring that Connecticut ratepayers are not bearing a disproportionate burden of the cost of maintaining the reliability of the regional electric market. So we have to prioritize reform of the ISO New England markets. That's the root of the problem, is that the ISO New England markets, the way they've been constructed and governed in a very opaque process, have generated rules that are disfavoring and excluding and not giving credit for resources that the states have been investing in. That drives up costs for ratepayers. At the same time, the market has not been able to produce investment in resources needed for reliability, leaving to the states and especially to Connecticut the cost of of retaining resources that are needed to keep the lights on, like the Millstone nuclear facility. We are past time for Connecticut to get a fair shake from the ISO New England. That is critical so we can end the practice of having to pay for duplicative costs on our energy bills. So Governor Lamont rallied 4 other New England governors to a statement in October calling for dramatic reforms of the ISO New England market to achieve a more affordable energy grid. And beginning in January, all 6 states are coming together in a market design forum to set us on a path to achieve that. At the same time, I can say that the investments that we're driving in our state public policies through energy efficiency, through behind the meter solar, these are making a huge difference in helping individual businesses take control of their energy costs and lower their energy bills. While we do have the unenviable position of having some of the highest electric rates in the country, we know that through investments in energy efficiency, we actually are in the middle of the pack in terms of the actual energy costs that families and businesses pay, again, because of that investment in energy efficiency. And so, that combination of a variety of different programs that we have developed in our state enable us to be very competitive in talking with businesses that are thinking about expanding or coming to the state to be able to offer, affordable energy costs. But we are continuing to press on this every single day. And a lot of the biggest bang for the buck, our biggest opportunity to improve affordability starts with ending duplicative costs and the broken market design at the ISO New England.
Are you hearing anything from ISO New England? Is there conversation between not necessarily just Connecticut, but the other New England governors on this issue?
Frankly, I think we've heard some promising things from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, Steve. I think, the ISO earlier this year was pushing a program that would have loaded $200 million of increased costs on energy consumers, called it the SE program. It would have caused oil power plants and environmental justice communities to run more, generating more air pollution. And all of the states came together on a consensus basis. We were pushing hard for the rejection of this ill-informed and under-analyzed market fix from the ISO New England, and FERC rejected it soundly just a few weeks ago. I think that signals that finally the consumers are starting to get the ear of the federal regulators, and I hope that will continue into 21 with the new Biden administration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Moving on to WTNH. Okay, moving on to Fox 61.
Governor, Katie, Matt Karen, Fox 61. Great to see you guys. Thanks for hosting this. I did want to ask you, with how much revenue is going to be generated through this program, if there's a concern with Connecticut not being able to control how this money is going to be spent. I mean, Governor, I know you said you like to do things regionally, especially when it comes to climate change, but is there a concern that we're really not going to be able to decide what this gets used for?
Not at all. I'm happy to take that one first, Governor. So the beauty of this multi-state program is that the states come together and work collaboratively on certain aspects of the program that need to be decided regionally, like how stringent the cap will be and how much emission reduction we want to seek. That's decided through regional collaboration. But when it comes to other aspects of the program, those decisions are reserved to the states, especially the decision around how to invest the proceeds. All of our states, we may have different policy priorities. And so it will be completely up to Connecticut's discretion about where we invest those dollars that will be coming to the state from participation in this program. Importantly, and this is new, this is something very different from the RGGI program. In the TCI program, the states that are participating have made a commitment to each develop in our own states an equity advisory board that will inform decision makers about how proceeds should be spent, so that we can ensure we can put equity at the forefront. We can meet that base minimum investment commitment of 35% of proceeds going to underserved and overburdened communities. But there are a whole host of things that our state can invest in to help reduce emissions in the transportation sector, whether that's electric vehicle infrastructure, expanding transit, looking at investment in roads and bridges, doing investment in providing safer bike lanes and sidewalks, even improving high-speed wireless internet in rural and low-income areas can provide for more teleworking and more emission reductions. There's a whole host of different options that are going to be before us, and I know we're going to be looking forward to engaging with legislators as we move forward with implementation of the program to come up with an investment plan that works for Connecticut.
Governor, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, this is one partial solution for the hole in our transportation fund, which we've been trying to focus on for a while. Thinking about cost, Katie, said the cost is capped. It's capped at 89 million, up to 89 million by year 3 and 117. We can make sure it doesn't go more than that by adjusting the number of credits that are issued out there. So we have control over price, and we have control over how that money is dispersed. Then it's up to the wholesalers whether they pass along what little cost there is to the drivers, or whether they get more competitive in terms of their pricing as they focus on each other.
And thank you for that. Those who don't support this also say that the inevitable gas tax increase would also end up costing municipal and state government more money, who have to fuel the trash trucks, the plows, the construction vehicles, at a time when state and local governments are already working with reduced budgets. So does that concern you at all, the extra cost to municipal and state government?
Well, again, we've capped that cost, Matt, as I told you. Secondly, there's an assumption that the wholesalers just push all that cost on to drivers, which is not necessarily true. Price is set by the market. We'll see where they want to be there. And I need the naysayers to give me other solutions for our transportation fund. This is my second effort. And this one has a double win because it's on a regional basis, and it really hits the environment head on in a positive way. Sorry, Katie.
No, not at all. That's great. I would only add as well that, folks who are suggesting this is a gas tax are just peddling misinformation here. This is not the legislation that will be put forward to enact this program will not involve an increase in Connecticut's gas tax. We haven't seen an increase in that gas tax in many, many years. What this program will do, Matt, is to set for the first time a limit on carbon pollution from the transportation sector in line with the state mandates we already have to reduce emissions economy-wide. And this program, unlike a gas tax, it guarantees that we will see emission reductions occur. And it guarantees that we will have investments that flow from this program for putting that limit on carbon pollution on the fuel suppliers, on the oil industry. We will see those investments going towards clean transportation solutions that will provide for lessening the burdens of air pollution and carbon emissions on municipalities and on overburdened communities. The public health impacts of high asthma rates are already burdening our economy. The infrastructure costs that we're already seeing from dealing with intense storms, from dealing with flooding, from dealing with higher temperature costs, opening cooling centers, managing for culverts that are getting impacted and washed out, dealing with vegetation, trees that are dying from increased invasive species. These are costs, real costs that everyday people, taxpayers, municipalities are paying because of the delays that our country has seen in addressing climate change. And it's time for the misinformation campaigns that have been spurred by the oil industry for decades to come to an end, so we can cut through these politics and actually advance affordable technologies and investments in a market-based solution that's consumer friendly, that will help lessen the burdens of the climate crisis on the people of this state.
Just one quick more one, if I could. Governor, any thoughts you could offer, memories, reflections on State Senator Gomes, the passing of State Senator Gomes?
Yeah. Look, we came from very different places, Matt, and ended up in the same place, and became very close friends. And we're going to miss him dearly. I got to know him first because I threw my hat in the ring because I thought the invasion of Iraq was a lousy idea back in about 15 years ago. And I got down to the old State House, and the place was packed with a lot of people, but only one person who was elected wanted to be there. I learned a lot about politics, and that one person was recently elected State Senator Ed Gomes. And so I knew him as somebody who always stood up for what he believed. Let the consequences be damned. This is what I'm going to do, what it means. And I think he served the people of Bridgeport just passionately. And his loss is a loss that I feel desperately. And I know the people of Bridgeport, the people of the state of Connecticut do as well.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Moving on to Connecticut News Junkie.
Thanks, Rob. So I wanted to know what, or is this part of your plan at all? What are we doing with trash? If we are we not contributing to emissions if we're going to begin trucking our trash out of state?
Gotta unmute. Yeah, thanks, Christine. So listen, the crisis that we're facing in the waste sector is, we've got two tough choices. Number one, we have waste energy facilities that we've relied on for disposal, an important part of our waste infrastructure, but becoming more costly. We know that those generate emissions of air pollutants in our communities and carbon emissions. At the same time, as waste energy facilities are struggling, like the Mirror facility, landfilling, if we don't take action, then we're going to see our future include more carbon emissions associated with trucking our waste farther and farther away. Think about that. 40% of the landfills in the Northeast that are, close to us are not going to be available by 2026. So that means we're going to be seeing trucks rolling to the Midwest and farther to take our trash somewhere that communities will accept it. We don't, we're in a crisis. And crisis is a moment where we seize opportunities to move to better solutions. And so what we're going to be doing, we're not embracing landfilling as the solution here. We're saying it's time for us to rally together, work together with municipalities across the state to make a conscious decision to advance sustainable solutions that are proven and affordable and that use accessible technologies that are available to us today to better manage our trash in a way that is respectful of our environmental justice communities and the impacts that they've been bearing. So these include things like advancing investment in anaerobic digesters around the state. We have one large anaerobic digester today that's proven really successful. We need more of this type of infrastructure, both grid scale and on farms. Expanding composting facilities. 37% of the waste that what's going in our trash today and going to waste energy facilities or landfills is organic material. Food scraps or leaf material, yard waste. These are things that it's cheaper to tip those materials at an anaerobic digester or a compost facility than it is to send it off to disposal. We just need to get the infrastructure built and build it in places that are accessible and nearby our community around our communities around the state, so that we can start to have an organics program that's working at scale. And right there, we will have pulled out, reduced 37% of the material that needs to go to disposal. That's how we solve this problem. Look into the trash can. What's in there? 37% is organics. 40% are materials that are recyclable. Paper, glass, plastic, metals. So enhancing our recycling programs across the state is another really important thing that we can do, again, to minimize the amount of trash that we need to dispose in the first place.
Hey, Christine, I might just add that we've got a great new leader on MIRA. His name is Bert Hunter. He has the environmental passion and how we have to do this right that you hear from Katie. He's does finance for us now under Green Bank. But I also love him because he was an investor in the energy space for years, focuses on public-private partnerships. So we're going to find the best way to deal with this trash for a long-term point of view that makes sure that we maintain our environmental priorities and don't cost our towns and municipalities anything more.
All right. Thanks, Christine. Moving on to Hearst, Connecticut Media.
Thanks, Rob. I've got one question for the commissioner and a couple for the governor. Commissioner, so Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and DC by some measures generate like 3% of transit emissions. Are you disappointed that the other states didn't join in with you yesterday, or is it just that they will join inevitably?
Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island represent 3/4 of the emissions from the transportation sector in New England. I think yesterday was a great day for making a significant dent, finally, in reducing emissions from our transportation sector. We've known for years it's the largest contributor of emissions in the transportation sector. This is the first time you see the Southern New England states coming together to say we are going to transform our shared transportation corridors and electric system or transportation system, reducing those emissions in a way that's going to have a huge impact in our region, and together with DC. At the same time, yesterday we saw 8 jurisdictions, in addition to our 4 states, or the 3 states in DC that are moving ahead, saying they want to be at the table. To be part of designing the program and continuing to refine it, including the addition of North Carolina. So I think by the time we see these auctions launching in 2023, you will have more states than just the Southern New England states and DC. But it's, different states have different policy processes going on, climate councils, the timing and policy moment for different states may come at different times. But this is a program that's flexible. And just like the RGGI program, it is capable of having more states join in a convenient and easy way going forward. The RGGI program started off with a small number, and now we see more and more states joining over time. That's going to be the case with TCI as well.
Thanks. Governor, is it fair to say that conservatives and business interests are in climate change denial over this and they don't want to pay for clean air or infrastructure improvements?
No, I don't think that's true at all, Ken. I mean, Ford Motor and most of the car companies are stepping up on this. If you put in place the rules of the road, and be clear and do it over a period of time. A business adapts and they know it creates markets for them and creates opportunities. Look, there's some politicians who, think what's pro-business in any business is what lobbyists tell them. But I think people in the business community know this is an important initiative and they can have real economic opportunity coming from it.
Thanks.
And I would
finally,
just add, Ken, on that. I mean, look at who's supporting this program. British Petroleum, BP, an oil major, has come out as a strong supporter of TCI. We see auto manufacturers in this country that have, under the prior administration, not been on board with fuel economy standards, now swinging behind the Biden administration, saying that they're going to be supporters of working on fuel economy standards and greenhouse gas emission standards because they want to be part of manufacturing electric vehicles. This is the future of our transportation system. So for Connecticut, being part of this program means having a competitive edge and a competitive advantage to have the infrastructure in place to be able to connect in and plug in these low-cost solutions that are coming to us.
Thanks a lot. Finally, Governor, can you give us a little more of a hint on what you're going to do for transportation infrastructure? You got a fund that's going broke. You've got lawmakers who are too afraid to go for tolls, and what are you going to unveil in January or February?
And they weren't just afraid to go for tolls. They were afraid to go for even their own plan. That was what was frustrating for me. I mean, you're hired to make up your mind. Here's a problem. Let's find a way to solve it. But look, TCI is one more arrow in the quiver. I've got to take this to the legislature, talk to transportation, talk to leadership on both sides of the aisle. It doesn't solve for world peace. It doesn't fix our transportation fund, but it's a start. And it's a start that also has a clean environmental component to it and doesn't put us at a competitive disadvantage with our neighbors. So I'd like to think it's something they'll consider.
What else you got in store for your budget, or is it too early to start pressing you on that?
I think it's a little early, but the budget's coming into clarity as the federal government figures out a little more what they're going to do and what support they are. And I think you've seen they're going to be providing funding for transportation. They are going to be providing funding for education. They are going to be providing some funding for vaccinations and testing. So that all will impact our final budget of priorities, which we probably will start laying out, early in the new year.
Thanks, Governor. Thanks, Commissioner.
Thanks, Ken.
All right, thank you, Ken. Moving on to News 12.
Hi, everybody. Katie, I was hoping we could bring your son back for a few questions.
My senior policy advisor. I'll see if he's done with his online learning.
So TCI, do you guys have the votes in the legislature to get it through?
We're excited with yesterday's announcement. We've got clarity on the states, the jurisdictions moving ahead, and we're looking for, we had some great conversations yesterday with some of our legislative leaders, and we're looking forward to now spending more time, walking through the details of the program, helping to refine the model rule, and I'm confident that as we move this process forward and into the General Assembly, into the upcoming session, that we'll have great support.
Governor, you want to weigh in on that?
Oh boy, that's always complicated for me, but Paul Mounds and Jonathan Harris and Katie are all working with the legislative leadership saying, here's an alternative that I think makes an awful lot of sense and would make Connecticut a leader and doesn't hurt our competitive standing around the rest of the region and makes a difference in terms of health disparities. Let's do it.
Governor, if I could ask you a follow-up question about Commissioner Cardona. Can you just talk about what about his personal story and his background led you to pick him for the job and why you think, President-elect Biden chose him?
Yeah, John. Look, he was not even a superintendent. He was a deputy and raised some eyebrows, but I thought he was extraordinary. He had a empathy for students and teachers that you could just touch, you could feel. He was, I think, a superintendent and or deputy. He was a principal of the year and showed that he had a respect of his peers. And he had thought a lot about this, education, school, and the such. So I thought he'd be a unique change maker as our commissioner. And I feel really fortunate that we could hold on to him for 2 years before the rest of the country discovered how extraordinary he is. And go ahead.
Go ahead, Governor. I'm sorry.
No, I also think that, look, working through COVID, you saw the on again, off again to the schools in our neighboring states. I think he was steady. I think he gave parents and teachers confidence that we're only going to keep our schools open as long as we can do it safely, make that a priority. And our schools are more likely to be open than any other school in the region. And I think it was his steady hand that made a difference there.
And just really quickly, have you officially heard from Biden's people that he's being nominated, and what are your plans for the post now?
I think I'm like you. Somebody put a Politico blurb in front of me. So I'll wait and see for that official notification, and I'd like to get over and congratulate him in person, John.
What are your plans for the job, for his job, if he is official?
Well, it's a really important job. I think we've got a very strong deputy there, and we'll see what we do going forward. But let's face it, if he is our Secretary of Education, I think that's what it looks like. He's going to be moving on pretty quickly because he's got a big job to do down in Washington.
Thanks, everybody. Merry Christmas.
You too, John.
All right, thanks, John. Moving on to NBC Connecticut. All right, WSHU. All right, WTIC.
Hi there. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Great. Awesome. I just had one quick question. It seems with TCI that I hear just a lot of like all the possibilities that can come out of it, public transportation, trash collection, recycling, all these improvements that can be made for communities. And, you know, should you get the go ahead from this legislature, I'm just wondering what's your top priority when, you know, things start, you know, you really start getting the ball rolling.
Yep. WTIC asked me about TCI. Look, my top priority is I've got a transportation fund that's underwater. And in particular, priority number one would be a public transportation bus service. Look, rail is down a lot since COVID. So we're figuring that out. And but bus service is still essential. It's essential for our essential workers to be able to get to work. And as Jerry reminds me all the time, you know, when it comes to environmental justice, let's start with public transportation, clean, non-gas producing buses.
All right. Thanks, guys. Happy holidays.
All right. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Weston Today.
Thank you. A question following up on the legislature for the governor. Curious if there's any particular levels of support in the legislature for the program and somebody that's willing to champion it and run the ball.
Hey, Jerry, you're in the legislature. Did you hear that question?
Heard it loud and clear, Governor. And all I can say is my colleagues in the Environment Committee are very, very familiar, very strong supporters, and I don't know who else will join on board, but you're looking at somebody who will champion it from this. Right now, you're looking at somebody who's willing to take the ball and run, and I believe there's many of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle that were willing to do the same thing.
Hey, Tony, do you want to take this while we're concluding? You know something about the business community.
Well, you know, I was just thinking about the opportunities this initiative presents, and to, with the risk of being a little parochial here, a good example would be we have a train that comes into New London from this shoreline east to New London from New Haven every day. And it can't go on to Mystic because of lack of funding. But think of the economic value of running a train from Grand Central, New Haven, stop off at New Haven, have lunch, come on down to Mystic, get off at the Mystic railroad station. I mean, it offers huge opportunities to really begin to get people off the highway. And this is just one example. I think the biggest, quite frankly, the biggest opportunity that will come from this will be with the amount of companies that want to move to Connecticut because we are a progressive state. And I think if I had a limited amount of money to promote this program, that's what I would be talking about. This is leading the way. This is really needed across this country. All you have to do is go to Europe, England, Ireland, and you look at their transportation system, you look at their investments there in technology. I mean, this is it's not a magic bullet. We know that, but it's a step in the right direction. And I am very proud of you and Governor and your colleagues for taking this initiative.
Well, thank you, Tony.
Thank you all, and happy holidays.
Gary. All the best to you. Katie, wrap it up.
That's it. I think we've said it all, but I'm just, as we look ahead, I mean, this has been a very challenging year in fighting a pandemic. We know that the fundamentals that have driven, great leadership in this state, listening to scientists, making pragmatic, practical choices to, protect our families and businesses. That's how we're approaching this climate crisis as well. And I'm really excited, Governor, about what the new year is going to bring as we move ahead to implement the TCI program, engage with our legislative leaders on this opportunity and on so many more opportunities that we have in front of us to deliver cleaner air and a more sustainable future for our kids and for the state. So thank you for your leadership, Governor, and thanks everybody for being on today, and have a safe and happy holiday.
Enjoy the holidays, everybody, safely.
Take care.
Merry Christmas.